Why not men?
Yes.
Why don't you talk to men? What's wrong with us?
I refuse to be a middle-aged man.
I've been saying that for a long time too, and somehow you just get sucked into it like a vortex. What does your treatment plan consist of?
It is completely personalized. I think a lot of women that come to me are out of balance in so many different areas of their lives. You can get into these like vicious cycles that are really hard to break. We're rebalancing you for yourself.
Hi, everybody. This is Dan and Dante. Welcome to another episode of Middle Age Mess, the show for people who still remember the number from their rotary phone. And mine, just if you're counting at home, is 213-836-6279. That was between 1971 and 1984, FYI. Today, we're going to be talking health. We're going to be talking wellness, holistic coaching. We're going to be talking women. Our guest is Marnie Dachis Marmet. Hi, Marnie.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you on. So we're talking women today, right?
Sure. Let's talk women.
Well, I think that's what you do, right? I mean, that's your focus is women.
Yes.
Okay.
Women's and teens, young women, older women, middle-aged women, all across the board.
Got it. Well, most of my friends say I'm 30% woman, so I'm going to be right in tune with you today. All right. So look, I know that you have the Art of Living Well podcast. I know that you're all into holistic health and yoga. How did you start on this journey? Where did it all begin?
I own and operate a promotional products business, which is like putting branding and logos on swag for companies. And I've been doing that since I had my first child, who's now 23. I would say a few years in, I kind of lost the love for the business and was searching for something else. And I've always been like super passionate about health and wellness. I just started kind of researching different career ideas. And this was like in 2013.
Were you a stay-at-home mom at the time, or you were doing other things?
I've been running this promotional products business, which I still own and operate.
Got it.
From home while I had my first child.
When did that start? When did you start running your own business?
I started running it in like 2003.
Okay. When you were like 6 years old.
What? I'm actually 50. In any case, I basically just was feeling, I don't want to say dead inside, but I was feeling like a little bit lost and like I wasn't passionate about what I was doing and I knew I was meant for more. To make a long story short, I ended up finding the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, which is very big today, but back then it was smaller. And they have a health coaching program.
Oh, wait, so what is it? Is it like an international organization? Like what exactly is it?
It's in the United States.
Okay.
So it's not international, although they have students from all over the world. In my class, there were students from everywhere. But it's an organization, and basically it puts you through a holistic health coaching program, and you can get your certification.
So can I ask a really stupid question, because I'm not that bright? Like,
yeah.
What is
no such thing as a stupid question.
It's the only stupid question is the one you don't ask, right?
Right. Absolutely.
What does holistic mean? What is holistic?
That word is used so much in today's day and age,
exactly,
right? And
exactly.
So I think of the word as looking at it from a whole mind, body, spirit perspective. If you go to a Western medicine doctor and this is a really basic example, but you're having bad headaches or something, they're going to give you a medicine. They may give you a stronger medicine, and then they're going to send you out the door. Someone comes to me and says they have headaches. We are going to look at an entire whole mind, body, spirit approach and try and really get to the root of what is going on in their body and try and figure out why they're getting headaches and what we can do about those headaches that's maybe not taking an Advil every day, or you know what I mean?
So you go beyond the physical. You talk about their psychological well-being. You talk about their environment. You talk about just everything that exists in their world.
Yes. It's a lot of education. You know, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, and it can feel like a therapy session. A lot of people need space to just be heard and bounce ideas off someone and say, you know, am I crazy that I don't agree with this or that?
So look, I'm from LA. And we have all sorts of like woo-woo therapies. And, you know, LA is like kind of a joke for being, you know, a little bit wacky in the way we think about things. What do you do to kind of combat that bias? Because I think you're from Minnesota, right?
Yep, Minneapolis. Yep.
Okay, I mean, we're like hardcore Midwest values, right? I mean, when you start talking about things that sound kind of wacky left coast, do you experience a lot of people saying just not buying it in general?
So I'm a firm believer that you attract the people that want to work with you that I attract, if that makes sense. So
Sure.
so I'm not really dealing with those kind of people. They're not coming to me. They're not even interested in me if they have that mindset.
Right.
So I don't deal with that, in all honesty. Like if someone is like, I don't believe in the shit you're doing and whatever, I'm like, by all means, like
Adios.
you do you. Like
Yeah.
I don't even that's not a good fit for me either.
Yeah, just send them off to a Vikings game and they're good.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Go drink your beer and smoke your cigar and have fun.
How do people find you? How do people find you?
Mostly word of mouth. I do have a podcast. I just wrote a book that came out in August called My Song Unleashed.
Oh, right on.
And
Cool.
I've actually picked up some clients from that, which is interesting because it's a memoir. I still run my promotional products business and I'm podcasting and that business I run with a co-host and we run quarterly group detoxes. So through the detoxes, people find me. It's all over the place,
Got it.
just different places. And I don't have a practice in the sense that I'm seeing, 8 patients or clients a day. That's that I do a lot of different things. So I only take on a few clients at a time.
Yeah, you got to sell your swag too. I mean, that takes some time, I would imagine. Okay,
Yeah.
I rudely interrupt you as you were telling me about the institute that you'd done your training on. So let's kind of go back to that.
I was just saying that's how my journey started. But
Right.
then I ended up going through yoga teacher training and a second yoga training, which was called yoga calm therapy, which is yoga training with a therapeutic component for elementary age students and teenagers. And so I did those 2 trainings as well. And then I, started practicing for a few years. And then I started following this naturopath named Dr. Stephen Cabral, if you've heard of him.
If not.
He's pretty big. And I went through his trainings to become a integrative health practitioner. And that's level 1. And I did level 2, which is lab testing. So I do all kinds of functional medicine lab testing. And then I'm currently in another course now through him called High Performance Health, and it's specifically focused on longevity.
Marnie,
So,
you're like a professional student. I hate to tell you.
I am a professional student. I love school. I love learning. I'm constantly educating myself.
That's awesome.
That's a big part of me.
So let me ask you, how did you get in, where did your mindset come from, right? I mean, again, Minnesota, I don't think is like the bastion of holistic health teaching, right? Why is it that you took a cotton to this type of teaching?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I've always had a passion for health and wellness. I've always been drawn to it. I was a gymnast in high school. I really was focused on the external, I would say, growing up, on what I looked like and what my body looked like. And I think that when I found yoga, I really started to change my mindset and think about how it's really not, the outside really doesn't matter. It's really what's going on the inside. And I was having a lot of internal battles with myself, where I was
Right.
a little bit of a perfectionist and I didn't feel good enough and smart enough and all of this stuff. So I think that I worked really, really hard on my mindset. Now, that being said, I've always been a very positive, glass full kind of person.
Right.
I wasn't always like that with myself, like my own personal self-talk, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. I mean, you fit in very well in Los Angeles. You'd be a great Angelino. So once you finished you haven't finished your education. You're still mid-education right now, right?
I'll never finish my education because
Okay.
I love to learn and there's always new things to learn.
That's great. Well, once you finished enough that you felt comfortable teaching other people what you're doing, what's your main focus? What are the types of things that you really focus your practice on? If it is a practice, it's kind of like a practice hobby.
Okay. So, we talk about nourishment. We talk about moving the body. I do supplement consults, lab testing, help with sleep, stress, longevity. So the course I'm in right now is actually very focused on longevity because I just turned 50. I want to live to be at least 100. I want to be on the floor with my grandkids. I want to be doing, whatever sports I want to be doing into my older years and feel great and healthy. And so I am very keyed into longevity right now. And I seem to be attracting people that are also very interested in longevity. So that is going to be kind of fun for me. When I was in my younger years of health coaching, I had younger kids. And so I was focused on different things, younger moms, whatever. Now I'm kind of getting older and I'm really more focused on these middle years, which is one of the reasons why your podcast caught my eye.
Middle-aged mess. We're all a mess, every one of us. And you're storming into the phase.
Yeah, I refuse to be a middle-aged mess.
I've been saying that for a long time too, and somehow you just get sucked into it like a vortex. So who's your typical client? Who are you working with these days?
My typical clients right now are working women who are middle-aged, I would say 50s and 60s. A lot of them are coming, they're either winding down their careers and they're newly, not working, retired. Kids are going off to college and they're starting to focus on themselves. But a lot of these women are very stressed out, high cortisol levels. They know what to do. They have like all this information. A lot of people know what to do, but they struggle to implement. They struggle to, follow a plan, really, I guess, pull things apart and figure out what it is they should focus on. It's like, I know I need to do this and I know I need to do that. But so that's what I'm dealing with a lot right now.
So give me like an onboarding process. Like when somebody comes to you and they say, I'm stressed out, I'm not sleeping, I'm in pain, blah, 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 all the typical middle-aged whining, which I do almost every day. How do you kind of start getting to the core of what their problem is? What's your onboarding process?
I do a 15-minute free consult for anybody that's interested. And we just do a quick chat, kind of talk about how things work. Typically, I see someone either for 3 months or 6 months. Although oftentimes what happens is when somebody ends up working with me for 6 months, they kind of get on a roll where they are feeling really good and they're making all these changes and they want to continue. So I would say the average length of client time is 6 to 12 months, which sounds like a really long time to some people and maybe scary, because a lot of people are looking for that quick fix. I am not your quick fix person. I'm your person that's really trying to help you make changes that are long lasting. You're learning, you're educating yourself, you have accountability. After the 15-minute consult, if the person is interested in working with me, the first meeting ahead of time, they will fill out a very lengthy, I call it like lifestyle consultation form. It's kind of like, when you go get your physical at the doctor and they ask you all these questions, but these are very specific towards what I'm doing. They fill that out. I review that ahead of time so that when we start our first session, we're not wasting all that time with me asking those questions.
What are you used to seeing?
A lot of people want to lose weight. And I would say
maybe you should do the consult with me right now. Maybe it'd be a good idea.
Almost every person that comes in wants to lose weight. But what's interesting about that is that after talking with someone, a lot of times weight loss is not the first thing we address, but it becomes a byproduct of what else we're doing. A lot of people need help with food and nourishment, and they don't know how, some basic tips on how to eat. Intuitive eating, I call it. So where you're eating and you're really tuning into yourself and listening to your body. And we talk about nutrition, and I provide recipes for people. I help them with meal planning, not me doing it, but actually educating people on how to be successful in it.
That's kind of the basis of all of holistic teaching. It's like nothing is in a vacuum, right? Nothing is on its own. It's always the entire person. You're not fat because you had too many French fries. You're fat because you have these problems which don't let you sleep. And because you're not sleeping, you're hungry, right? I mean, it's just a whole list of things.
And that's going back to the holistic person, right? So like sleep, for example, is huge. Like that's probably one of the other really big issues that a lot of people have is sleep related. And if you're not sleeping, that's when you can start snacking. You can get into these like vicious cycles that are really hard to break. And so I'm really trying to help people break those cycles and create new patterns that are healthy, and then they're going to feel well and feel strong and energized.
Right. And so I know a lot of your practice involves yoga.
My personal practice involves yoga. I wouldn't say that I'm like teaching my clients yoga, but we do talk about yoga. And sometimes if I have a client, I will give them like a specific pose that I want them to do for whatever reason it is, 5 minutes a day or something.
What does your treatment plan consist of?
It is completely personalized. It depends on what the person wants. So like right now, a specific person that I'm just thinking about that I'm working with, she is really struggling with meal planning. She works a lot of hours during the week and doesn't have kids at home. So that makes it way easier. But like I'm giving her recipes and tips and accountability, and we're planning, it might be like a timer in your phone going off to remind you that you need to get in the kitchen and start, prepping. And then it's very specific tips on what you're prepping and how you're prepping it and how you're storing it and like that kind of thing. Now, it could also be that I'm telling, somebody needs to work on their breathing, because breathing is actually huge.
Yeah. Breathing
levels.
Generally is a big part of health. I would agree with that 100%.
But people don't breathe. I mean, obviously we're all breathing, but like people don't stop and just take like deep breaths. So it might be incorporating some breath work. It might be like you asked about exercises. Now, I'm not a trainer, but I do have, some basic fitness knowledge from my programs. And I also work out quite a bit as well. So I will give some suggestions on that as well, or I may refer them to somebody else. It depends on what their needs are.
Got it. You know what I also like hearing is case studies. Give me your best case study. Give me somebody, don't tell me their name or their address or even their phone number, but like somebody who came in and was like just a catastrophe and you turned it around in some amount of time.
I mean, I don't think anybody's a catastrophe that's come
Okay.
in. I haven't had anyone that's like just a disaster. So I'm thinking of this woman who has 3 children, all in either middle school or high school, right? And her husband travels all the time. She does not have a job outside of the home, but she is this woman who's trying to do everything.
Yes.
And be perfect at it.
Yes. I've heard about her for 50 years now. Yeah.
Yes. And her stress levels are just through the roof. And she's not eating well, and she's not, preparing healthy foods for her kids. They don't want to hear of it. And this one wants this and this one wants that. And she's making multiple different meals for her kids, and she's driving all over the place. And so really for her, the first thing that we needed to do was self-care. Like she had no self-care in her life whatsoever. It was like she didn't matter. She was focusing all of her energy into her children and then her husband. And she was really suffering for that. So, we did a lot with self-care. We did a lot with stress. Then we moved on to food. I ended up working with her for a year. She is such a different person now. Like every so often she'll send me a message and just say like, I'm still doing legs up the wall, which is like a yoga pose. It's a very easy yoga pose, where you're laying on your back and your legs are flush with the wall, and you put on a 5-minute meditation, and like everything releases in your back and your legs. And so anyway,
going along with my 30% woman thing, Marnie, I actually do that same pose 5 or 6 times a week, just FYI.
Yeah, it's a great pose, right?
I just let my feminine energy just like pour out up the wall. It's fantastic.
Well, it's not a women's pose.
No, I know
it's
it's
everybody's
not. I know it's not. I know it's not.
But that pose for her made a big difference in her life. Now that's one little thing. We worked together for a year, so we made tons and tons of changes. She felt like she was really good to go by the end of the year. She was feeling so much happier and healthier, and her kids were starting to embrace the changes. And it was heartwarming actually to see, because it trickles down. Like, you make the changes and then your kids see that. And then, they start to embrace some of the stuff. Maybe your spouse or significant other does. So it's really.
At what point does she say, okay, Marty, I'm good. I'm out. Adios. Like, is that a mutual decision, or what usually happens that ends the treatment?
Sometimes I would say sometimes it's a mutual decision. Sometimes the client is nervous about not having that, because we try and get together on Zoom unless they want to meet in person. I'm willing, but there's people not from Minnesota, so it depends where you're from. But every other week. So it like becomes kind of a regular session or meeting. And then people get worried. Well, if I'm not having these regular sessions, am I going to kind of fall off what I'm doing? This particular person, after a year, I felt was very ready. Like I didn't know what else we could do together at that time. Like I felt like we had covered a lot, and she needed to just try and be confident and comfortable in her own skin and go on her own. And I'm always available for a check-in or a reboot or whatever it is, right? And I run these quarterly detoxes with my podcast co-host. And so a lot of my clients will jump into those, 1 week programs and do like little reboots that way too.
So let's answer the ultimate Gloria Steinman question, which I thought of while you were talking about her. Can a woman have it all? Can a woman have a career and a family and be super successful and happy and fulfilled? Is it possible in this world that we live in today?
I mean, I think so. I mean, I feel like I'm doing that. It depends on your definition of success, right?
Well, I would imagine a lot of women come to you with that dilemma. They're in a high-powered career and they don't feel like they have time for their family, or they've been a stay-at-home mom for a long time and they feel like their career aspirations have been, terminated or whatever. And they're trying to figure out a way to balance everything at once. My guess is that's almost a lot of people who come to you.
Yes. And the key word, you just said it, is balance, and really learning how to balance. And I think a lot of women that come to me are out of balance in so many different areas of their lives. That's exactly it. We're rebalancing you or yourself.
I got it. Okay, now here's the most critical question I have. Why not men?
Yes.
Why don't you talk to men? What's wrong with us? What have we done?
I do talk to men, actually.
Oh, okay.
And I haven't, in my detox program that I run, we have quite a few men that do it. And then I end up just supporting them and chatting with them through those weeks. We get a lot of alumni, we call them, like repeats. And so, but I haven't actually had a man and want to work with me one-on-one, but I'm not opposed to it. I feel like I have a lot more knowledge in women's health.
Got it. So the Art of Living Well podcast, tell me a little bit about it.
The Art of Living Well podcast, we drop episodes weekly. We're on like our 200 and some episodes.
Oh, wow.
Been doing it for 3 years. And it's really about finding your art of living well, right? So that means something different to everybody. And we bring a lot of guests on that are kind of on the cutting edge of wellness and are talking about things that maybe aren't as mainstream, although maybe they are in LA.
100%. 80% of the people in LA are doing all of those things, I can assure you.
Yeah. So it's been really fun. I've learned so much from my guests. I've grown so much from having guests on my show that opened my mind to so many different things. And yeah, I would highly recommend checking it out, the Art of Living Well podcast.
That's great. Let's talk about your book.
So my book, I'll just hold it up here because
Yes.
I love the cover.
No, it's very nice.
Thank you. It's called My Song Unleashed, and it's a memoir. And it's really my story of how I grew up kind of feeling like I wasn't being true to myself and I wasn't living my authentic self. I felt like my voice was kind of squashed. I talked a little bit about this with you earlier about how like finding yoga and some of this health and wellness stuff really opened me up as a person, like all these experiences that I've had. And so the book is really about, it dives into a lot of other things. Like my dad was in drug and alcohol treatment and, we had a death in the family. Like there were a number of things that the book dives into. I lived abroad, and it's really about coming into my own, being true to myself, listening to my gut, as opposed to worrying about what other people think.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty universal message. Where can people find you if they want to reach out?
You can Google my name. If you want to buy the book, it's pretty much everywhere you can buy books. It's also on audio. So if you listen through the libraries or Audible or any of that, my business is Zenful Life Coaching. ZenfulLifeCoaching. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. I am not on Twitter. Not a fan of Twitter. Sorry.
Screw Elon Musk. Nobody needs him anymore. He's got too much money.
But if you Google me, I'll pop up.
That's awesome. Well, it's a powerful message that you have. I love what you're doing. And look, I'm from LA, so I'm all about holistic medicine and wellness and healing. I pretend to be a little skeptical just to kind of throw you at the beginning, but I love people who, bring in all these different factors, the environment and your psychological makeup and everything else that goes into being a human being today. It's not just about, your capillaries and your veins and everything else. So I appreciate what you're doing. I know you're doing a great job out there. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a fun conversation.
Okay, I appreciate it. And, look, for everybody out there, like, subscribe, go check out the Art of Living Well podcast. We want to hear from you anytime you want. And this has been another episode of Middle Age Mess with Marnie Dachis Marmet. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.